This is the Erasing Shame Podcast, Season 3. Honest talk for healthy living, growing, and thriving.
Welcome to a new episode of Erasing Shame, and this is Season 3. So I want to welcome all our old listeners as well as our new listeners and my new co-host, Nancy Lee. Thank you for joining me for this Season 3.
Hello, everyone.
Yes. And so Season 3 means we have had Season 1 and 2. My name is DJ Chuang, and I've been part of starting this up as we want to have honest talk about healthy living in various aspects of life, relationally, emotionally, personally, and mentally. And then for Season 3, we're going to focus on how to live a life that's growing and thriving. So it's going to have a theme throughout the episodes, but first, I would like Nancy to introduce herself to our audience, and then I'll briefly introduce myself as well because we do have some new people watching and listening. So Nancy.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nancy, and I'm such a huge fan of Erasing Shame. I am first American born here in San Diego. Me and DJ actually got a chance to meet each other because we're not too far away. But yeah, I grew up here in San Diego. I went to school in Berkeley. I lived in New York for a little bit. Love traveling the world. I love people. I love culture. I love learning and growing. And really just my desire is for people to be able to fully live in their potential and be able to make an impact in the world. And my heart is for education and social justice. And so I really found a lot of healing in my own journey here with Erasing Shame. And so that's why I'm here, because I really want to be able to bring some of the things that I've learned, as well as a fresh perspective, and definitely be able to start normalizing the conversation of what it looks like to talk about, you know, therapy or healing or, you know, going through this journey of just discovering your true identity and your true self as an Asian American, particularly for me and DJ here, but for everyone, wherever that is for their own journey. So thanks for having me, DJ. I'm super honored that I get to be here for this season, and I hope to really connect with everyone on this journey throughout these next few months on a deeper level as well.
Well, I'm very excited about this new season as well. And I think your audio dropped out just for a second there. Our technology is not perfect here. And
Okay.
I think you said you're Vietnamese and Chinese?
Yes, so I'm Vietnamese and I'm Chinese. My parents immigrated here from Vietnam, and we have a huge family. I actually have 14 on both my mom and my dad's side of the family. So definitely there's a lot of stories there that have not really been told. And because this has definitely been a journey of me learning more about my own roots and my own history in the process of coming alongside Erasing Shame. And, you know, for me, it's awesome because, you know, we had the opportunity to be born in the US and have all the opportunities as Americans and the whole American dream. But I realized that in my own journey that there was still a lot of limiting beliefs and barriers that were holding me back from the life that I wanted to live and deserve to have. And, you know, it's something that's common with a lot of our community that hasn't been talked about. I'm in the world of financial, you know, education and leadership development and entrepreneurism. And even in that space, you know, I really felt a lot of different limiting barriers that held me back. And so I really just hope that this could be an open and honest conversation for other people who are really trying to tap into their next step and grow into their full potential. So
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Nancy. And I myself am Chinese American. I immigrated to the United States when I was 8 years old. And now that is 44 years later. So I'm currently age 52. I have a son who is 21, going on 22, just finished college with a math major. And he actually helped us out here on the Erasing Shame podcast last summer. We had a special series of Erasing Shame about mental health in Asian American communities. And he was the host. And he did a great job interviewing and having conversations with almost a dozen people about various aspects of healthy living when it comes to managing emotions and thoughts. And then Season 1, Season 2, I had a co-host, both who happen to be therapists. Eunice Lee helped me launch this whole thing because having this conversation about erasing shame isn't a monologue. It really needs to be a conversation, and shame has such a strong relational component. And so I'm very grateful for Eunice starting this whole conversation up. And we try to have this every week, occasional breaks. And then second season was with Mei Lee Chang, who is a therapist up in Minnesota. And that brings us here, first of 2019. And we're starting season 3, again, with a focus on the healthy journey of growing and thriving, helping you reach your potential, kind of getting, erasing shame in the sense of getting out of that darkness and stepping into the light. And rather than spending all our energy focusing on the pathology and the pain of shame, we want to spend more time in the light and talk about the things that we can do and the things that we can embrace and understand about our identity that brings us health. Great.
Yeah.
So that's our background. And on this episode, we wanted to take a little time to introduce what's coming up in season 3. But before we do that, we should define what shame is and share something from each of our perspective as we understand shame. And so I'll start, and then Nancy, I know you've got a very thoughtful perspective on shame. But shame is very simply feeling, we use Brene Brown's simple definition. It's the painful feeling of something is wrong and something bad about us, to be contrasted with guilt, which is something that you've done wrong. And so what that does to a person is it can really delve into that identity. It can really kind of wedge itself and cause a person to hide and to blame. And it just does all kinds of terrible things that we've talked about in season 1 and 2, whether that becomes a disorder, whether that becomes strained relationships. And then worst case scenario, we are seeing an increase in people who are dying by suicide. And since shame festers in silence, we are doing this podcast to counteract that by having healthy, honest conversations. And so we're going to talk about hard things. We're going to do our best to talk about them in healthy ways and sensitive ways and in helpful ways so that we don't worsen that condition, but really help you to walk along. Nancy, what would you add to that?
Yeah, I love season 1 and 2, and especially Dr. Lisa Chu's definition of shame when she said that it's all the things that we don't talk about and living compartmentalized versions of ourselves. That really, really helped open and unlock a few things for myself. But for me, just, having my faith, I really just have to kind of go back to the source at all times to see where did shame come from? What was the purpose of shame? I'm actually going through a course right now that's helping me understand and connect with feelings and emotions and understanding the purpose and reasoning behind everything, because we do have emotions for a reason. They were put into place because it either was to help us protect us from danger or fear, or to let us know things were wrong. So it's just understanding those things and understanding its positive aspects of it. But when we think about shame, where did it first come from? And we have to go back to Adam and Eve and in the garden when there was perfect harmony in the world, and Adam was connected with his creator and the source, and they were naked at that time, and all was well. There was no shame. But when it was the fall of man, really, when Adam and Eve ate from the tree of knowledge and evil, as they always talk about in the story, that's when they started realizing that they were naked and there was shame. So what did they do to hide their shame? Was to cover themselves with leaves, right? And so it wasn't anything drastic that happened, but other than to say that they went against the rules and basically they disobeyed. And the rules were set into place because it was to keep them safe, to create order, to also allow for certain harmony in the world, and just to really protect them. But somehow in that process of them falling into shame, they realized that they were naked, and there was this aspect of wanting to hide. wanting to feel smaller. And so when I really had to think about what happens when we feel shame is we feel small. We feel like we're less than. And because we feel less than, we're not living in our full potential. We're not living in the life that we were designed to have, both in our own selves as well as for the purpose of the world, because we've all been given special and unique giftings that when we're not living in alignment with that, there's something that's off. And so having that process of finding your own sort of authenticity and where everything can align and things are no longer compartmentalized, like Dr. Lisa said, that's really when you're able to overcome shame and not feel like you have to hide. So I feel like in that own journey for myself as, you know, someone who's in leadership development, there's definitely been real feelings attached to that. When you come into the room and you feel small, right? You feel like you're invisible or you don't want to be there or that no one knows you. And because of that, there's this feeling that you're not really living in the way that you were designed to live or the person that you were created to be. So I think that's something that's really been resonating with me when it comes to shame. And this has definitely been a year of growth and stepping into greater authenticity, finding my own power and my own purpose as an Asian American. And this podcast has helped me a lot in my own journey. So I hope that these conversations help you guys as well.
Well, thank you, Nancy. Thank you for joining me on this journey. And we'll be leaving some breadcrumbs and exploring the topics that have been helpful to us. And we'll also be inviting special guests to bring their expertise as well as their stories to help us understand how shame affects different parts of life and how they were able to move out of that hiding and get onto the path of growing and thriving. So we'll run episodes every week, usually releasing on Thursdays with occasional breaks if occasional things happen, not because of technology, but I do travel for work once in a while and sometimes things just happen. This is a passion project. We have no staff, no budget, but it's too important of a topic not to get started with. And so that's why we do what we do. And we do hope it is helpful to you. And we would love to hear from you. And one way we're going to do that is Nancy's going to help us out. And she has a special announcement for our Erasing Shame community.
Yeah, I have been following Erasing Shame since last spring, and it's kind of just funny how that all happened because I've been on my own journey of really wanting to build a community, particularly around the Asian American community at first, but really then realizing how universal of a topic shame is and how it all impacts each and every one of us.
And one more thing, as we enter season 3, we're going to do something special to connect with our audience. So Nancy, tell us about your special announcement.
Yeah, I'm super excited for everyone who's been following Erasing Shame. It's kind of funny how it happened actually, because I've been on my own journey of really wanting to connect the community, and it just seemed like a perfect fit. So we are creating a Facebook group called Erasing Shame, One Story at a Time. And this is a place for you guys to get involved and get engaged and really be able to start sharing your own shame stories or just ones that you'd like to really highlight and bring a voice to. It feels like a lot of times people don't know where to start. And so we want to just create a space where people can start finding safe areas to share and fill that with compassion and support and start really uncovering their own journey of self-identity and to stepping into their own sort of freedom through erasing shame. We actually did set up a Facebook group, so definitely check that out, get involved. And then we have a text service. So it'll just go to my phone. I have an app, I set it up. It basically is a text service where you can leave a text message. So feel free to share your stories on there. It's anonymous, 100% anonymous. It just comes through as a phone number. So there's no sort of ID on that. So you can send through a text message or a picture message. If you wrote out a letter or had something on a card, you just want to take a picture of it, I'm happy to share that on our Facebook group or for the community. You can also leave a voicemail. and let us know if you want us to share these things on the public page. You may not have access to it, or if it's just easier for you to do it that way. It's just 100% confidential if you don't want to, and we want to be able to help pinpoint you to resources. This is just a place for people to feel like it's safe space for them to be embraced just where they're at, without feeling like there's a pressure to fix or change anything, other than to start taking that first step forward and hoping that you'll also discover the right next steps for you, gaining the help and erasing your own personal journey of shame. And the other thing is we want to help identify different aspects of shame. So if you guys can really help us maneuver through that and, hashtag it. So we'll kind of give more instructions about that. But yeah, so I'm really excited to be able to create that space and hope that you guys can find your own sense of healing through that.
Well, thank you so much, Nancy, for being a great hostess and showing that kind of hospitality, because the thing about shame is finding someone that you can trust and someone you can be safe with to share those painful stories, feelings, and thoughts. And so, because we've been in an environment or somehow been in relationships that have caused a lot of shame, it's hard to find people to talk with, and then you wind up carrying all that weight, and it actually affects you psychosomatically. Hey, there's a fancy word. Nancy, I'm glad you have a psychology degree. You can help decipher some of that for our listeners and viewers. We really want to make this show accessible to people that haven't taken psychology. And I'm glad, Nancy, that you have had that background and you can bring some really valuable perspective as we learn how to erase shame and move towards growing and thriving.
Yes, and I forgot to read the number, actually. So
you should.
For those of you who don't have Facebook, I just wanted to read it here just so that you at least have it. It's 619-493-0597. Again, 619-493-0597. That is our Erasing Shame hotline, fully anonymous. That'll come to me, and we would definitely want to also create space for those conversations to be more entwined into our show, if that's something that you want to just ask about certain topics to bring up.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you for remembering that. And you'll want to talk to Nancy probably more than me. So give her a call, give her a message. We really look forward to interacting with you more in season 3. And so as we wrap up, Nancy, how are you feeling about co-hosting, and what are you most hopeful for?
It's definitely been a journey to get to this place. I posted a lot of things on my own personal page that you've seen, DJ, but yeah, it's like Sandra Oh, who recently just hosted the first Asian American to host the awards show. And she said on stage that she was so scared, and she's like an actress, right? And she's like, but she had to overcome all that fear because the message is just too important. And so that's really how I feel about this. And I just feel like there's so much that needs to be shared. And I just hope that my message and my perspective can bring healing and to encourage those of you who are listening. And so I'm here, I'm fully in, and I would love to connect further throughout the season. So feel free to reach out.
Thank you so much, Nancy. And thank you, viewers and listeners, for connecting with us on Erasing Shame. Look forward to journeying with you every single week for the next few months in season 3. So connect with us at erasingshame.com. We're on Facebook and YouTube and podcasts. We'd love to have you rate and review so that others can join this conversation. Until next week, we'll say bye-bye for now. Nancy, bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks, DJ.
Thank you for being a part of Erasing Shame. Please rate and review on iTunes, subscribe on YouTube, and like on Facebook. Share with your friends and followers. Together, we are erasing shame one story at a time. Get all the details at erasingshame.com.